Hi, everybody. I started getting involved in community theater around 2014 or so. I almost missed out on my first play. The audition form said that some people would be cast without needing to be called back, so be sure to check the cast list, even if you didn't get a callback. Well, I just figured that was them trying to soothe the fractured egos of those who got rejected. So when I didn't get called back for any of the roles, I figured, they picked somebody who was a better fit. Well, then a day or two after the cast list went up, I got a call from the stage manager who asked if I was still interested in the role. Apparently, it wasn't just them being nice, and they really did cast me without calling me back. That's apparently a thing that actually does happen. Unfortunately, it happens the other way around too. Back in the summer of 2018, I auditioned for a local production of Mamma Mia. I really wanted the part of Tanya. It's the role played by Christine Baranski in the movie. And I got called back. But, of course, when you get called back, that means other people get called back too. And they're the ones who are in serious running for the part. Well, I got cast. In the ensemble. I don't think I can adequately describe to you how thoroughly this crushed my soul. I know some of you are like, like you even have a soul. Well, you know what? Apparently I did. I remember staying up late, repeatedly refreshing the page where the cast list was going to be posted. And then it went up and someone else was picked. And I was just absolutely gutted. Like, it wasn't just something I really wanted, though I did, but the part was in my vocal range. I'm not a great dancer, but it's a comedy, and since I'm really tall, I can play at my size in a way that hopefully makes my awkwardness funny. And I knew I had done a good job both at the audition and at the callback. And it wasn't enough. So I spent a good bit of that weekend moping. I did email back and say I'd be in the ensemble because I knew I still wanted to do the show. But part of that was that I didn't realize how much it was going to continue to hurt. Music rehearsals came first before blocking or choreography. And there were several times that I had to get up and walk out of the room where we were practicing, past the bathrooms, down a different hall, and to that set of bathrooms, so that I could just cry. Because somebody else was singing these songs that I love so much. Songs that I grew up with, that are so much a part of who I am. It wasn't every single rehearsal, but I think it wasn't until the third week that I'd kind of made peace with it. I had tried to reason my way out of it, tell myself that it was just one role, that it was just community theater, that it wasn't my job or my health or my friends or my family, but the truth is I was grieving. And that's okay. It's okay to be disappointed, even crushed, when you try and you don't succeed. It is not a pleasant experience. But what makes the biggest difference is how we respond to that. I teach high school language arts. Literature, grammar, writing, public speaking, research, and related skills. By the time students reach me, many of them, perhaps even most of them, have become risk-averse. They have learned that mastering the content in a course, what they learn is only useful as it is part of a process. Content mastery leads to good grades. Good grades leads to a good GPA, and a good GPA leads to a good transcript, and a good transcript is part of a good application, and a good application gets you into a good college. It's like this academic hamster wheel. You go and you go and you go and you go, and you don't actually get anywhere. Our public schools reflect the values of our public. Thus, good grades become an indicator of worth, particularly of worth relative to peers. Parents, teachers, and other adults talk about good students and bad students. And it isn't long before the students begin echoing that kind of language about themselves and their peers. With this kind of judgment hanging over them, it's hardly surprising that there is a documented decrease in curious behaviors as students get older and become more and more aware of the expectations that are placed on them. Students are less willing to take risks, to explore, or even to ask questions. That is, questions beyond, is this going to be on the test? By the time they're sophomores in high school, students have nearly always accepted some kind of identity about what kind of student they are. This leads to reduced engagement from all groups. Bad students have developed an attitude of, why bother? After all, they're not going to be successful, so any effort they put forth is effectively wasted. And good students have learned to expect that they will pick up concepts quickly and effortlessly, and that a minor amount of studying before a test should be enough to memorize what's needed to get an A. If they don't get it right away, or have to work hard to understand, it must mean that either the teacher's expectations are unreasonably high, or that they're actually not smart, and everyone is going to find out and be disappointed and ashamed of them. You can probably guess which way that tends to go. Students who have learned to identify with the grades that they have received stop being creative and curious. They stop experimenting and taking risks. Their behaviors fall into 3 categories: compliance, avoidance, and defiance. Defiant responses are easy to identify. In this mode, students make no pretense of paying attention or completing work. They may act out, creating distractions with off-task behavior. Defiance may also be a student's way of testing boundaries, which is why it's helpful to start with clarification and redirection rather than confrontation. Hopefully, it reinforces the expectation without putting the student in a position of feeling that they have to escalate in order to save face. However, when a student is uncooperative on a regular basis, it can be a defense mechanism. It's a way of detaching any personal connection from the anticipation of failure. Students with this mentality have been hurt by failure before, and so they're attempting to get in the first attack. It's sort of a, you can't fire me, I quit mindset. Avoidant behaviors are harder to spot because the student is actively trying to avoid drawing attention. When confronted about a lack of participation, the student is likely to promise to do better and may even begin working. However, it is less likely that they will follow through. This student may have a number of partly completed assignments that aren't turned in yet. As long as they appear to be working on one of their missing assignments and making some kind of progress, they might be able to continue to slip by without being noticed. And as long as the assignments aren't completed, they won't be judged with a grade. In this case, they refers to judgment of both the assignment and the student. In addition, the number of partially finished assignments provides a buffer against criticism, as it's evidence that clearly the student has been working hard. Compliant students have learned to go with the flow. For them, obedience has resulted in validation, and following directions has led to success. School is not a place for creativity or exploration. It is where adults in positions of authority tell you what to do. If you do as you are told, you earn approval. If you don't, you get in trouble, and it may become part of your permanent record. Each of these behavior sets is a category of learned responses that makes sense in a transactional system where the payment is not new or deeper understanding, but a mark of official judgment. Students and parents have the idea that good students should be able to receive good grades on their first attempt on each assignment in a challenging class. The thing is, that's not what challenge looks like. This is a poster that I made that is above the door exiting my classroom. I talk about it with my students early in the semester. Its placement matters. It is what they see and what I see when we leave the room. I tell them that while they are in the room, they don't have to worry about challenging themselves. I will make absolutely certain to take care of that for them. Challenge means that you should expect a struggle. Challenge means that you may not be successful on your first attempt, or your second, or your third. Challenge means you may have to try a different strategy. You might have to ask for help. This poster is on the front wall of my room. Now, the blue one is a grammar reference. I have a lot of posters. But the red one is more of a creed, and the color scheme is deliberate. Red for stop and look at this. Pay attention. Yellow on the words as a reminder to go slow, use caution, and work carefully and deliberately. Green on the last line to remind ourselves to keep going. Sophomores are at a really interesting place in their lives. They've started getting involved in sports, or clubs, or art, or music, or theater. Some of them have gotten their first job. They're studying for their permit and practicing driving. Many of them are finding that the friendships they had through elementary and middle school have dissolved, and through their interests, they're developing new friendships. They're exploring who they are and who they want to become. And a significant part of that is figuring out not only what matters to them, which is probably a lot of things, but also the relative values of those things. And sometimes getting an A in English class isn't at the top of that list. And that's okay. Well, I mean, it's okay with me. The difficulty is that the order of students' priorities does not always line up with what other people in their lives think their priorities should be. However, learning to navigate that difference effectively is absolutely vital. It's not part of our standards, but it's part of life. Somewhat unfortunately, it is a skill that will remain useful throughout your years. It's important to be able to advocate for yourself and for what matters to you, but it's also important to be able to listen to others and to consider their perspectives, even when they're different from yours. Maybe especially when they're different from yours. It's hard. Confronting disagreement is hard. Asserting yourself is hard. Compromise is hard. Experiencing disappointment or rejection is hard. And that's okay. It's okay for things to be hard. That's how life is. Sometimes there aren't any easy options, but developing different strategies, resources, and support systems to help you learn to respond to difficult situations will make those situations easier to deal with than they would be otherwise. Experiencing failure can leave us weaker, wounded, or even broken completely. Or it can give us an opportunity to identify and address weaknesses, to make ourselves better versions of who we are, and to become maybe a little more like the self that we aspire to be. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out the links down in the description for some of the articles and essays that I found interesting on the topic. And if you're feeling particularly brave, leave me a comment about a time that you experienced failure and what the experience was like for you. Bye, everybody.